Welcome to the Stoppage Time edition of the Pitch to Pro podcast. This is a highlight reel of some of the best moments from the show so far, and every other week we will be bringing you a special 5 to 7 minute segment featuring the best stories, tales, and moments of the podcast.
First one to speak English in my family, and so my uncle was my influence, my late uncle, and he played in some big time clubs back in the day, and so I was guided in that direction, and through it I just had some really good coaches. The late Bobby Howe, Roy Rees, Ralph Perez, to name it, the Brian Harvey that was my coach in college. He's unbelievable. Actually, Colin Harvey's his older brother from Everton, the legend there.
Okay,
that was the manager and player. So I was very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate and blessed to be under some of the best coaches that the country could bring to us. So and then playing with those players. So when you play with really good players, it makes you a better player. That's just a fact.
Iron sharpens iron.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll talk a little. I mean, you got to grow up and playing in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. Talk a little bit about, the game has changed quite a bit in the country. Globally, but especially in the United States. Once, we had the hosting of the 94 World Cup, and then the boon of and launch of Major League Soccer, and then, USL now coming into the mix in a big way in kind of that 2009, 2010 and the growth trajectory that it's been on, the NWSL and the iterations there. There's so much that we can talk about, but from your perspective, especially as a player, and just someone that's been player coach for, a long time, how have you seen the game evolve? What are some of the biggest things that when you look back and say, this is just so different than when I was playing and we didn't have these opportunities, or whatever it is? I don't know if it's a playing style or different opportunities. How has the game changed from your lens in the United States from when you were a player to now in your role with Comets?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, the game was much different back then. 4-4-2. You play with the flat four in the middle, and then it evolved to the 4-4-2 diamond, which is used today. But I think the biggest improvement of the game is just the possession based, and I'm a big fan of that. That's what I try to teach. So what I try to teach my players and educate them, I try to mimic what someone that like a Pep Guardiola and a Mourinho back in the day when he was such a players manager with Chelsea, and just how the modern game has changed. You got Klopp when he was at Liverpool with the gegenpress and all that. So the high press, building out of the back. Back in the day we played with a sweeper, and that doesn't even exist anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Which has been a great transition in the game. So just those little wrinkles in the game of breaking lines, switching the point of attack, playing in those little tight pockets, and how much the players have gotten so much technical over the years. And just the knowledge and the IQ of it is just incredible. And so the game keeps evolving every single day. So as coaches, we got to keep getting educated. We're going to fall off. So that's a big piece right there.
I think that's such a huge piece, and something that we as in the club hope to help bring to the area and to the country, right? And do our part in helping to not just educate the next crop of players, but also coaches, because that makes such a huge impact on a player's experience and then whether they choose to stick with the sport. Yeah. It's a massive, massive driver in participation. That's right. The environment and the experience that you have. And so I know we'll talk a little bit about that later on, and something that you're very passionate about. But yeah, from the game side standpoint, it's wild to, it used to be kind of the kick and run and, a lot more headers back in the day.
A little more uber direct.
Yeah. Just
that's right.
And, a little more target number nines and those kinds of players than maybe what it is today. You can still find that. I think it's all about, I'm not the coach, you're the coach, but a little bit more about who your opponent is and what's going to work, right?
Oh, 100%. That's you don't want to take away those options, right? I think the one manager that probably plays that way and will play that way, to the day he dies is Pep Guardiola. He's gonna use the tiki-taka possession and try to break you down with having a vast majority of the ball. You know what I mean? He's gonna try to wear you out, but then you got someone like Klopp that came in and he's gonna give you the ball and let you have it, but then he's gonna counterattack. You know what I'm saying? And so So it's pretty interesting of the different styles of play, and as a coach, you have to understand where your strengths, where your weaknesses, right? So that's why when you're coaching kids, you want them to give that kind of knowledge of how, hey, we got to change our style. And so the more you know, the better off you are. Sometimes you got to send it a low block like Mourinho did back in the day, right? You know what I'm saying? Park the bus and counterattack with that quick player up top. But I think overall, from a standpoint from player development, for me personally, I think at the youth level, especially at the younger ages, I think it needs to be a possession style, because then you don't skip out on a player, you don't bypass anybody. Where if you're just looking to win the game, which obviously winning is important, but it's not everything. You don't want to give up player development for winning at a young age.
Never.
And so, obviously getting the goalkeeper involved as an extension, building out of the back, trying to share the ball. Everyone's touching the ball, everyone's included in it, and so they're all developing where, you still see those young teams that are just have a loaded forward with tremendous speed, and they're going to bypass their back line and their midfield, and they're just going to hit it over the top, and you're going to win now, but wait till they get on the big field or right. It's real competitive.
Yeah.
And then you got the college coaches watching, so at that point it's one of those things where can he check to the ball or can she check to the ball? Can
right.
she link up? You know what I mean? So I think that's important for the youth game, is that we really got to focus on possession at a young age.
Thank you for joining us for this Stoppage Time special of the Pitch to Pro podcast. If you've enjoyed the conversation, you can click watch the full episode here. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for a new episode of the Pitch to Pro podcast,
the official podcast of Ozark United FC.
Available on YouTube, Instagram, and everywhere you get your podcasts.